I'm Anil Kumar. Welcome to my series on binomial expansions. In this video, we'll discuss one very interesting property of binomial expansion, and that is to compare the consecutive terms in the binomial expansion. There are two standard formulas for which I'm going to provide you with the derivation, and based on these two, we have two questions here. So the questions which we are going to discuss are based on consecutive terms ratio for x plus a to the power of n. And the terms ratio tr plus 1 divided by tr will be n minus r plus 1 divided by r times a over x. Well, from here you can also say consecutive coefficients ratio NCR over NCR minus 1 is n minus r plus 1 over r, and if it is NCR plus 1 over NCR, then it is n minus r over r plus 1. Questions which you see based on this strategy are the coefficients of three consecutive terms in the expansion of 1 plus x to the power of n are in the ratio of 1:7:42. Find n. Question 2 here is the coefficients of r minus 1th, r and r plus 1th terms in the expansion of x plus 1 to the power of n are in the ratio of 1:3:5. Find n and r. So if you know these formulas, then these questions can be easily solved. Right, so let's begin with the derivation of these formulas, and then we'll look into solution of question number 1 and 2 using the formulas themselves. So first we'll derive the formula for consecutive terms ratio in binomial expansion of x plus a to the power of n. Now, if I have x plus a to the power of n, then the general term is what? General term is basically NCR. We could write, okay, NCR x to the power of n minus r times a to the power of r. So that is the general term. Now, as you know, this general term is actually term number r plus 1, right? Since the series starts with 0, correct? That's very important to understand, right? So tr plus 1 is basically the general term which you always refer to. Now, if I want a term before this, then I can write tr will be basically replacing r with r minus 1 in the general term, a term before this, right? So will be n r minus 1, right? So we get tr, right? So r plus 1, just take away 1 from here. So we get x to the power of n minus. Minus of 1 means plus 1, and a to the power of r minus 1. You can always check this result. If you add these two exponents, what should you get? You should get n, right? So n minus r plus 1 plus r minus 1 is n. So that is correct formula, right? So this is kind of review of binomial expansion, and now we can simply find the ratio. So we have this ratio tr plus 1 over tr as equal to. So NCR, now what is the formula of NCR? The formula for NCR is n factorial divided by r factorial times n minus r factorial. Right? That is NCR, and we have the term x to the power of n minus r times a to the power of r divided by. Now in this same strategy, we'll replace r with r minus 1. So we get this as n factorial divided by r minus 1 factorial. N minus r minus 1 makes it plus 1, right? This is very important. So I've seen students make a mistake here. They write r minus 1 and then they don't get the formula, Okay. The other terms we can copy straight from there. X to the power of n minus r plus 1 times a to the power of r minus 1. Right. You can see n factorial and n factorial will cancel. We can write these terms in the numerator, those in the denominator. Right. So what we get here is r minus 1 factorial times n minus r plus 1 factorial divided by r factorial times n minus r factorial. Now let's look into these terms. X to the power of n minus r, we have the same term with plus 1 here. So we'll write this as x to the power of n minus r over x to the power of n minus r times x, correct? That is for this plus 1. Now this a to the power of r, a to the power of r minus 1. So I could write this as a times a to the power of r minus 1. So 1 plus r minus 1 is r, right? Is that clear to you? So I hope this step is absolutely clear. A critical step to get this part of the formula, right? So we are focusing there. So these terms cancel, right? These terms cancel. We earlier cancelled n factorial. And now you can see we have a over x, right? We need to simplify the factorial terms. Let's see that part also. Okay. So working with the binomial coefficients is very important from test point of view. So we need to understand all these steps. We have r minus 1 factorial. Here we have r factorial. So, well, r minus 1 factorial. And the denominator is r factorial. I could write this as r times r minus 1 factorial. Clear? Here we have n minus r plus 1. So this is 1 greater, right? So in this case, we could write n minus r plus 1. So n minus r plus 1 times n minus r plus 1 minus 1. 1 and 1 will get cancelled. So n minus r factorial. Do you see that part, right? So this was one term extra. So we have n minus r factorial, and on this side we did get our term a over x. Clear? Now you can see that n minus r factorial cancels, r minus 1 factorial cancel. So what are we left with? We are left with our formula, which is n minus r plus 1 divided by r times a over x. Is that clear to you? Correct? So we get our formula, which is the ratio of the consecutive terms, right, is generally written as this. Is that clear? Correct? Now let's take a ratio of consecutive coefficients, which is this part basically, right? Which is this part. So that should be simpler for you. So let's move on and take the next part, which is we'll now find what is the consecutive coefficients ratio. That means NCR over NCR minus 1, and also what is NCR plus 1 over NCR, right? You can now pause the video, solve this, and then look into my suggestions. So let's also find the consecutive ratios for the coefficients NCR over NCR minus 1. So we just did this, most of you must have got it. So we are now writing like this, NCR over. So that's another form of writing the same thing, NCR minus 1. As we saw, NCR could be written as n factorial divided by r factorial times n minus r factorial, right? Divided by this term, which is n factorial over r minus 1 factorial times n minus this, n minus r, it becomes plus 1, right? That is what it is. So we could write this as n factorial over. Now we want r minus 1. So we can say r times r minus 1, right? So this will be r times r minus 1 factorial. Here we have n minus r factorial. Now division is kind of multiplication. We can flip this up. So we have r minus 1 factorial And here, n minus r plus 1, that's an extra term we have, n minus r plus 1 times n minus r factorial divided by n factorial. Okay? So we took slightly different approach than what we took last time, but one and the same thing. Many students are using NCR, and this is written in so many different ways, right? Okay, so you could cancel these, and you could cancel r minus 1 factorial. You can also cancel n minus r factorial. So that is how you need to simplify, right? So once you do that, you get n minus r plus 1 over r. So that is what is NCR over NCR minus 1. Is that clear to you, right? So a simple derivation, but extremely important from test point of view. Always you'll get a question based on this. Correct? Now, how do we get the second one, which is this one, right? So you can see the only difference here is r is replaced by r plus 1, correct? So if I replace r with r plus 1, what do I get, right? So let's derive the formula from here, right? So I'm just substituting r with r plus 1, so we get nc r plus 1 over nc r minus 1 plus 1, right? Which is NCR equals to, so we have n minus, we are replacing r with r plus 1. So we write r plus 1, and we already have plus 1 here, and we have here r plus 1, correct? So when you simplify, you get what? So n minus r, and this plus 1 minus 1 vanishes, so you get n minus r over r plus 1, clear? So what you get is the formula, which is NCR plus 1 over NCR is equal to n minus r over r plus 1. Is that clear to you? So these are extremely important formulas. Once again, you need to remember them, or it's a simple derivation. You could always derive them. Perfect. Now let's take up our questions. We are going to apply the formula and then find the solution. Okay. So question number 1 is, the coefficients of 3 consecutive terms in the expansion of 1 plus x to the power of n are in the ratio of 1:7:42. Find n. So let's say that 3 terms are, we can say NCR, right? A term after this, NCR plus 1, and the term before this, NCR minus 1. We are saying that their ratio is 1:7:42. Now we need to find n. We have 2 parameters to work with, n and r. We need 2 equations. So one side we can have a ratio of NCR minus 1 over NCR, and this ratio is 1:7. That is to say, this is equal to 1/7, correct? On the other side, we could work with the ratio of NCR plus 1 over NCR, and that ratio is 42/7, right? 42/7 is 6. Let me write this as 6/1, right? So this is the ratio given to us. Now we'll actually apply the formula which we just derived, right? So that should help us to quickly get the solution. So we are now actually applying this formula, right? So we have NCR minus 1 over NCR. So we can flip this, right? So we can write r over n minus r plus 1, correct? And then we can find, so it is r over n minus r plus 1. So we could write this as r over n minus r plus 1 equals to 1/7, correct? So we used our formula and applied this. So we can now cross multiply. So we get 7r equals to n minus r plus 1. Bring them together. So we have 8r minus n is equal to 1. So we get one equation. Now this second formula, which is NCR plus 1 over NCR, which is n minus r over r plus 1. We're going to apply this and find our result, right? So we get this as n minus r over r plus 1 should be equal to 6. Clear? So just cross multiply, so we get n minus r equals to 6r plus 6. Bring the terms together. So we'll write in the similar fashion. We have 6r taking away n, right? Taking away n and bringing 6 to the other side. Since I wrote here, we get minus 6. Correct? So we brought n to this side, 6 to that side. Okay. So 6 plus r plus 1. So that becomes 7, right? So we get here 7r minus n equals to minus 6. So these are the two equations. Let's number them as equation 1 and equation 2. To solve them, we can actually add these two equations, eliminating n. Now we have two linear equations to solve. So if I do equation 1 minus equation 2, what do I get? 8 minus 7 is 1, so we get r. Minus n cancel. And 1 minus 6, we get 1 plus 6, which is 7. So the value of r is 7. Now to find the value of n, we know n is equal to, we could use any one of these equations. So n is equal to 8r minus 1, 8 times r minus 1. So n is equals to 8 times 7 minus 1, which is 56 minus 1, or 55. Clear? So from here, we get the value of n, which we need to find, which is 55. Is that clear? So that is how we can actually solve such a question. So it's kind of important if you kind of know it. At times it is a multiple choice question. It takes much lesser time. Otherwise, you can always derive the formula. Correct? Now let's take up question number 2. Here is question number 2. I'd like you to pause the video, answer this question, and then look into my suggestions. It's very similar. The question is, the coefficients of r minus 1th, rth, and r plus 1th terms in the expansion of x plus 1 to the power of n are in the ratio of 1:3:5. Find n and r. So the key here is to understand, we are not giving, these are the term numbers, right? These are the term numbers. So what are their coefficients? That's important to remember, right? So the term numbers are given to us. Term numbers are r minus 1th is to, let me write like this, is to rth is to r plus 1th, right? So what are their coefficients? Tell me. What are their coefficients? Now it is important to understand term number is one more, right? Therefore, their coefficients are NCR minus 2 is to NCR minus 1 is to NCR. So some of you could do this mistake and get a wrong answer, right? So it's very important to understand when we are talking about term numbers and coefficients, you have to always take care of this, right? This is a common mistake. Now, we are given the ratio is 1:3:5, so let's do this ratio. So we could write this as, again, two equations, NCR over NCR minus 1 will be 5/3. And on the other side, we can write this as NCR minus 1 over NCR minus 2 is equal to 3/1. Correct? Now we know the formula. This ratio is what? This ratio is n minus r plus 1 over r is equal to 5/3. N minus r plus 2 over r minus 1 is equal to 3. So cross multiply. So we get 3n minus 3r plus 3 equals to 5r, which gives us the equation as 3n minus 8r equals to minus 3. Here we get n minus r plus 2 equals to 3r minus 3. Bringing them together will give us n minus 4r equals to minus 5. So these are the two equations for us. To eliminate, what we can do is we can multiply this by 2, right? So we get minus 8r. So let's do it. So we have this as 2n minus 8r equals to minus 10. So let me call this as our equation number 1 and this as equation number 2. So now what we do is we can eliminate by taking away from 1 to 2. So we will now do equation 1 take away equation 2. So if you do that, 3n minus 2n is n, right? Minus 8r is 0, minus 3 plus 10, right? Which is 7. So that gives you the value of n as equal to 7, right? Now to get the value of r, we can use one of our equations. So we have n equals to 7, and we can substitute this in our equation number 1, for example. So we get what? So sub in equation number 1. So we have 3 times 7 minus 8r equals to minus 3. So that means 21 plus 3 equals to 8r, right? 20, I wrote 27. So 3 times 7 is 21, right? So 21 plus 3, which is 24, right? So r is equals to 24 divided by 8, which is 3. Okay, so we get the value of r as 3. So we can write down our answer that n is 7 and r is equal to 3. Clear? So that is how we could solve. So I hope that is straightforward. Feel free to write your comments and share your views. The important thing here is to remember this formula, or at least to know how to derive it so that you could solve such questions. I hope that makes sense. Feel free to write your comment, share your views, and if you like and subscribe to my videos, that'd be great. Thanks for watching and all the best.